Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Outside Insider after a chaotic few days in the world of Philadelphia sports, and all of it, and I mean all of it, centering around Nick Sirianni. Now, the last time I streamed was Sunday. Difficulty doing Sunday to Monday streams is I'll often repeat myself. You know, if I do a post-game reaction Sunday, a lot of those emotions are just then regurgitated. So I thought I'll save you the hassle, we'll simmer it down, and we'll see what happens, you know, in the coming days. And unfortunately, it got a lot worse. When we left off, we just saw Nick Sirianni riling up the fans, which we thought was a bit odd, to say the very least. And then fast forward no less than an hour, and you've got this Eagles head coach sat in the press conference with his children, which in itself got a lot of flack, a lot of heat, and that varies in opinion. And we'll get into each individual incident and I guess how I feel about it, and then come up with a base summary of what's going to happen. But that, you know, threw up some question marks. The presser itself, for me, raised far more questions than the fact that he brought his kids onto the podium. Like, he's done that before. He's going to do it again. I'm not that miffed about it. Like, it doesn't really bother me that much. But what was said in the press conference certainly does. Then, less than 15 hours later, you've got a media report out stating the Eagles officials, so not even just the fans anymore, but team officials are now annoyed at Nick Sirianni for his behavior, deeming it inappropriate, which prompted a very, very different press conference yesterday. Someone that took to the podium, apologized for his behavior and said, you know, it's a very candid Sirianni. It was like a kid that had been told off, sort of sat at the podium like, yeah, sorry guys, I got a bit overzealous there. Like, it was just very strange, like two conflating personalities on show. And you fast forward even more, and the noise just doesn't stop coming, and Sirianni continues to then just say and do things that don't help him. And at the grand crux of all of it, the cherry on the cake, is that this Eagles team should have beat the Browns very, very handedly. They didn't. They scraped a win. That doesn't warrant his reaction to the fans. It doesn't warrant a particularly cagey press conference. It wasn't, I don't know, like Doug Peterson level, but it was certainly enough to make you go, huh, okay. Like he just looks like a man under a lot of pressure in a very, very similar fashion to what we saw with Doug Peterson in his final months in Philadelphia. Like, people forget when Doug Peterson first joined the Eagles, he was quite jovial, quite jokey, always smiley, just this warm character, filled with, as Jeffrey Lurie once said, emotional intelligence. That was the big calling card of hiring Dougie P over the other coaches at the time. And you now then fast forward past the Super Bowl, the ego comes in, the Carson Wentz demise comes in, the Jalen Hurts drafting comes in, and you've just got a guy that gradually lost that spark. He wasn't the lovable, you know, very warm, endearing Doug Peterson. He was cold, quite stubborn, I would say, in press conferences, came across quite confrontational at times, and would often bring up, you know, like, not beefs necessarily, but he would try and hold reporters accountable or be a bit firmer with them, to say the very least. And Nick Sirianni is doing all of those trademarks. Again, like, you go back to when Sirianni first joined this football team, that first press conference where he was mocked, he was, you know, universally ripped by media, by fans for stuttering, for being a bit mumbly, for yapping, I guess, as the millennials would call it, and just being a bit nervous, and people mistaking that passion for nerves and uneasiness. And he was then, from that moment on, seen as this very jovial, very cheerleader-esque character, and very happy and bouncy, and how he would lift the locker room. Again, same process. Fast forward it, this time not even a few years. They go to a Super Bowl, doesn't quite work out. Tensions start to build. Coaching changes happen. Sirianni then finds himself in a spot of bother because all the coordinators he wanted have gone. He now has guys that have been pushed in to help him. He has no responsibility now other than to be a cheerleader on this team. And he sits there just contradicting himself constantly. Like, and that's my biggest thing with the fan behavior, like, of all of it, that will start there. You look at the way, even a week ago, I believe it was a week, it may have been 2 weeks, where Jalen Carter was on the sideline giving the opposing team jip, getting up, getting angry, kind of, letting his emotions show and riling up the opposing team. And it was Sirianni that pulled him back and calmed him down, as any head coach should. All right, tempering the situation, cooling the fires, let your player do the talking. Fair enough. A week later, Nick Sirianni bursts through every single player in his path en route to the fans to start gesturing, I don't hear you, to start really acting out like he's just beaten an undefeated Patriots team from back in the day, to make out like he's just dethroned the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. You've beaten the Browns, fella, and you've barely done that. And what example does that set? And that, for me, is the precedent right now with this team, is Darius Slay, I hate to pick him out again, acts a very certain way on Twitter. Fair enough. But I guarantee you now, if any of the younger guys did it, if you saw Quinyon Mitchell taken to Twitter after a game, Darius might try and talk to him and say, don't do that. You know? Jalen Carter starts talking up on the sidelines, getting a bit angry, getting a bit emotive. Nick Sirianni calls him down. A week later, Sirianni goes off and does the same thing, but this time to his own fans at home. There is just a universal, what feels like, discrepancy in leadership. No one really knows. Like, it's very much do as I say, not do as I do when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni can yap around all he wants, can mouth off to who he wants, can say and do what he wants, so much so that he needs a personal bodyguard, essentially, and Big Dom down on the sideline. And then a player does it, they get pulled back. You fast forward to that press conference, and you've got a guy that, I hate people saying, the shaved head thing's a thing. The man just had a haircut. Is it representative of a change? It could be, depending on what level of school you want to go into to read between these lines of a poem. But everyone was kicking off about the fact that he brought his kids to the podium after a win. Doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me, because what you've done is create a family environment. You want to share the win with your family. Fair play to you. Well done. But again, double standard. You go on about creating a family environment. You bring your kids to the podium and you sit there. You start getting a bit tetchy with a reporter. So I guess we didn't work on it all week then. A bit of sarcasm. If I'm honest, the audio stream was absolutely horrendous. I couldn't tell what the question was even in relation to, but Sirianni certainly didn't like it. And then you start swearing, saying the defense started fast as shit 3 times. You cuss in front of your kids that he brought to the podium. So another double standard of Sirianni, where he says one thing. Don't mouth off to opposing players, Jalen, but I'm going to scream at my own fans. I want to create a family atmosphere, but I'm going to swear in front of my kids. That is the issue. It's the fact that there is no, consistency. And it goes from on the field in terms of the play calling and the plays that are run, to off the field with the way that Sirianni carries himself, with the way that Darius Slay carries himself and goes on podcasts. In that secondary, you've got Darius Slay, who's happy to go on rivals podcasts and slag off teammates. You've got teammates that are happy to chirp off for no reason. And then you've got a bunch of young guys that are trying to learn from the veterans that are just setting the wrong example. There is no one on that team setting a primitive tone to say, this is how we do things. That's what your head coach is for. That's literally his job. And that's his only job, because he's been relieved of every other duty. So I find it utterly baffling that, again, name the events. Jalen Carter, don't have a go at them. Don't get angry at the opposing players. Don't rile them up. You'll get a penalty. Yeah, let your play do the talking. But I'm going to shout at my fans. I'm going to create a family atmosphere in this press conference, but I'm going to cuss in front of my own kids, and I'm going to get a bit cagey with the reporter. And then, while standing on business and saying, this was the right decision, I'm going to go and apologize for my own behavior. So no one knows. No one knows. Not even Sirianni knows what he's doing well, what he's doing bad, what should be good, what should be poor. It's just utterly baffling. I really don't understand any of it. And if you can't even have a head coach that can orchestrate a press conference without contradicting himself, that can't call a game without contradicting how aggressive he is or isn't, then what hope does this team have? Okay? If you took out all of that from the last 2 days, the Eagles beat the Browns. Wasn't what we wanted, but they beat the Browns. That's all that really matters. They get the win. Okay? That should be it. That should be it. The team's sort of back on track. You move on. You do the press conference and that's it. But instead, what has become a win against the Browns and what was like a frankly get right spot for this team has now become, well, we've done that, but let's just reduce all confidence levels to below what they were before we went into that game. Because Sirianni insists on being himself, but then retracting it, but then doing it again, but then retracting it. But I want my kids here, but I'm going to swear in front of him. But none of it is consistent. And it just makes you wonder, like, all right, scenario, and you got to be careful with these things. It is training camp, all right? Jalen Hurts comes out, bit slow. He's had a heavy night the night before. Now, this is obviously hypothetical. We know Jalen's not like that. Heavy night, he comes in a bit wobbly. And Sirianni's like, all right, I need to pick it up. Do that again, and there's going to be a fine. Meet me after practice. Jalen goes to meet him after practice, and Sirianni's there with 3 beer bottles on his desk. That's the equivalent of what's happening. And if that tone isn't seen by reporters nationally, how on earth is it going to be conveyed to the players? If it is, trying to rile players up and get them to be emotive, then telling them off for doing it, then you doing it anyway. The players don't know what to do. If you ever had a boss like that, it's impossible to work for them because they don't know what they're doing. They're just sort of yapping and getting through the day. Don't do that on a refund, but I'm going to do it because, well, I can, I need to. And it's like, well, what are we doing? It's just frankly barbaric. And if it's me and I'm Jeffrey Lurie, you have got a very tough decision to make. Because as I said on Sunday, the saying goes, a wise sailor flees the storm before it arrives. I can't tell if the storm is on the horizon or we are knee deep in water and we're all going under. I don't know how bad this is. Like, are we going to be fine or is this all a mess? And if you shoot too soon and you give it to someone like Kellen Moore or you give it to someone like Vic Fangio, it's a risk in itself. But if you don't do it too soon and you wait and it does get worse and the consistency just further lacks and the team loses confidence and the performance, like if they lose against the Giants, for instance, this is the big one. It's likable, right? I'm not saying it's probable. I can see them losing to the Giants, and that in itself is scary because they've won 5 of the last 6 against them and the Giants are a mess. But if they do lose that game, then what do you do? Is at what point is it too late? At what point is that storm arriving? It's so difficult. We're going to get to a few of your comments. Hop says, I'm a contrarian on this one. I'm just tired of being mad at the team, but I guess you don't have that luxury as a reporter. No, unfortunately, I kind of have to speak about everything forever, which is, you go to bed thinking about what Nick Sirianni said in a press conference, trying to break it all down. It can get stressful, but I understand, like, it's tiring being mad. And the thing is, fans, like, in all reality, shouldn't be mad at the team, but we are. And that's the issue, is that they're above 500 on the year. They've got an all-star cast on offense. The defense is gradually growing. You have to believe they'll get it right. But it's so hard when every single time something goes wrong. It is like being in a relationship with a girl you love dearly. You want to marry this woman or this man or whoever you're with. And every day you come home, you fight. And it wears you down and it wears you down. And you shouldn't be mad at those little things because you know the end goal is there and you're so capable of reaching it. But at what point does it get too much? It's the same thing with Sirianni. It's so difficult. Desert Fox, nice to see you, my friend. Sirianni's last year. If it isn't, I'll donate my testicles to science. Well, hopefully it won't have to come to that. I would like you to keep both bollocks intact if we can. But yeah, I agree. I think this could well be his last dance because what from here, I was thinking this earlier, like our expectations at the start of the year were NFC, or mine certainly were NFC Championship. A lot of people wanted Super Bowl. I think as soon as you get to a championship game, it's a coin flip. You can't say playoffs are the expectation because half of the pissing league get into the playoffs now. Like 14 teams of 32 make the playoffs. That's not an achievement. Mediocrity is not an achievement, especially when you've got a team this good. So if that was the expectation going in, now we've seen what this team is about and we're over a quarter of the way into the season. Where are we at? Where do we redraw the line? All right, if Sirianni gets us here, he's all right. Like, what is it? Because the schedule's not that tough. The NFC East is a mess. The Washington Commanders are the best team in it. The Cowboys are a woeful state at the moment. The Giants are barely existing. And you've got an Eagles team that is seemingly destined for greatness and just cannot deliver, just cannot get it over the line. So what is the expectation? Is it that they make the playoffs? Is that an achievement? When you finish inside the top 14 teams in the league, that's where we're drawing the base. Is it still a championship game? Because that now seems massively out of reach for the time being. It could change, but it certainly isn't, filling me with confidence. Is it conference? Is it winning the division? Winning the division, again, doesn't feel like an achievement because the rest of it's a mess. I don't know. And that's why I think, Desert Fox's comment's quite interesting. I don't even know if he makes it to the end of the year. Because if the expectation is NFC Championship game, and I say to you now, if I was to try and ask you for odds on what the Eagles are to make the NFC Championship game, no one is saying evens. No one's saying plus 120, plus 140. You're going to be plus 6, plus 700. Everyone. That's not good. So it's a very, very tough thing that the Eagles have to work out right now. It is to how much they tolerate. Like they've been patient. They went through a collapse last year. And the worst thing is, the Eagles might be 3-2. They're 3-2 against teams with a combined record of 15-15 on the season. 500. They're 3-2. They're marginally better than a 0.500 team. They've beat the Browns, mess. The Saints have imploded, mess. Lost to the Bucks, good team. The Falcons. And the Packers they beat, who are a good team. Like, it's really tough. We'll get to Birdbrain's comment. He says, I wasn't shocked we didn't blow out Cleveland. This team isn't good enough right now to blow out anyone because they constantly play against themselves. Can't blow out two teams at once. Sounds like an OnlyFans comment. But no, I completely agree. And that's the thing. It's like they've got to find somewhere. They need to find a baseline of something or some level of confidence is to just they know what they're doing. And I don't think they do in any situation. And it's utterly baffling. I was pleased with some positive steps from Sunday, but they have to build off of it for me to believe they're an elite team the fans want them to be. I don't think he could have worded that any better. If I'm honest, I think he nailed that like on the head. That's the thing. It's like we all know they can be the team. It's just, I hate to say it, showing shades of that season. The season that shall not be named in 2011. Like that, we don't know. We won't mention 20. Yeah, what? Wouldn't say that. So it's really hard. Because in one game as well, they can turn it around. Like they could go out and beat the wheels off the Giants. They could put 50 past them easily. But they probably won't. And after this, they've got the Bengals and the Jags. If Peterson goes in that time, if the Jags bring in a new coach and they get that new coach bounced, does that then become an issue? Like again, where is the line for a Sirianni firing here? Is it losses? Is it just vibes? Is it confidence? Does it matter if they go 5-0 over the next 5, but every win is by 1 point and they're barely hanging on to every game by a thread? And it's taking Saquon Barkley excellence to get them over the line. Excuse me. Like where is the base? Because I don't know anymore. And I feel like that's probably the worst place to be, is if you don't even know the expectation you're trying to set. At that point, it's gone. Like you can realistically go around most teams in the NFL and say, all right, by the end of the year, they should be there. And you can do it now. The Cowboys from here should be second in the NFC East. The Eagles should piss the NFC East. The Commanders should get second in the NFC. I don't know, I've said two teams, but I'm going off individual and the bias for each one, right? Someone like the Vikings should make the playoffs. Packers should win, make the playoffs. The Lions should make a conference game or a championship game. The Niners, the Seahawks, all should be in the playoffs. The Eagles, I can't even tell you. I don't know. I genuinely, hand on heart, do not know what to tell you when it comes to the expectations for this year because I think it's so dynamic. And that in itself is a bad sign. If you don't even know what you want from the team or what you can expect, like if you're Jeffrey Leary and you don't know what the future of your business holds, then it's time to surely make a change. Because what confidence do you have in Sirianni to turn this around? If he does turn it around, is it him? Is it the coordinators? Is it the players? Is it a mix of all of them? Like, what is his purpose even being there? If his only purpose being there is to be this hype man, to be the cheerleader, to be the coach, in advertent commas, and now everything he does is detracting from the team, he can't even do that properly. You're asking him to stand on the sideline with his hand in his pockets, watch the game, and do something, presumably. He's got as much coaching upside at this point as Big Dom. So why is he there? And if the team is consistently failing and consistently moving backwards and missing opportunities and fumbling games, again, where is the line? And I don't know from here. He could be fired tomorrow. Would not shock me. They could keep him all year, and it also wouldn't shock me. That in itself is terrifying, because I don't think anyone in that building knows what their future should be, or where it's directed, or what the aims are. It's not even football at this point. It's not even we're going to get right and we're going to score in the first quarter. Can we believe that for a minute as well? That they've played, 5 games now, and they've not scored a single first quarter point. Not even a field goal in the first quarter of any game. Any game. So you're beyond that now. You're beyond, the team can get this right. Oh, they can run the ball. They can pass the ball more. They can do this playbook thing. Like we're beyond that. It's you have mortgaged the house on Devontae Smith, on AJ Brown, on Jalen Hurts, on the offensive line, on Saquon Barkley. You have got a generational offense, and it's not delivering. You have bought a race car. You have taken it to a track, and you have put a raccoon in charge of the vehicle, and it is just, I don't know what raccoons do. I think they just fart everywhere and it smells. I don't know, but it's stinking up the gaff is what it's doing. It is stinking up the car. It's causing cautions. Everyone's crashing, and you're just losing money. Hire Dale Earnhardt Jr. Hire Jimmy Johnson. Wheel knowledge. Yeah? It's crazy. A mediocre team with good players is what Deshaun Jackson said, according to Bird Brain on his podcast. And again, not wrong. Really not wrong. Like I said it a few weeks ago, this is a team being carried by individual excellence rather than a team. There is no team in this at the minute. And I will say, as I said on Monday, I think Cooper DeJean's arrival in that defense changed a lot for the group. It gives them more optionality when they want to rush the passer. It gives them a little bit more freedom off the edge in terms of who they drop into coverage. They can bring the extra DB. It doesn't have a massive impact then on Bryce Huff. He can do his things, and that seemed to work quite nicely. But where is that growth? The last two, forget the Bucks, but the week before that, the defense was good. The Bucks ripped them to shreds, and I don't know what happened there. They just looked terrible, and they look better here. That's 2 out of the last 3 games. The defense has looked better. The offense has looked dire in every single one. And you look at the route run. I know there's been a lot on Twitter about this. They're like, it's not Nick Sirianni's not doing, but it's not Kellen Moore's offense, and it's that it's Nick Sirianni's offense, and it's his plays, and Kellen's just sort of calling Nick's plays, which I can believe, to be honest with you. If you look at the way week 1 went, where there were that many penalties and there were that many setbacks and they couldn't do anything, I would hedge money on Nick Sirianni coming out of that game and saying, look, I know this is your scheme and you're the coordinator. They don't know it. We've had no preseason. They don't know what they're doing. We'll do it next year. For now, bring out this bad boy. Yeah, bring this out. Bring all the old Sirianni Bible, and they're going to wheel that out, and they're going to run the exact same plays they ran all of last year because the players know it, and it's landed them in trouble. I can see that being a reality. I don't think it is, but I would not be shocked if in 6 weeks' time a hit piece comes out from one of the big dogs at the Inquirer and it says something along those lines of, hey, turns out it's not Kellen Moore's offense and he's just calling the shots that Sirianni's giving him. Would not be shocked in the slightest. Alex says, Leah, my friend, and I accepted your challenge. No way! If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, then we're shaving our heads. Love that. I can't remember what I put mine was. I think I said 4 wins in a row or 8. I don't. I'll join you at Super Bowl if they somehow win the Super Bowl. This Barnett is going, because I'm already looking like prime Sirianni as it is. Look at it. It's receding atrociously. It looked like an onion, for crying out loud. So yeah, I'll very much honour that bet with you. And we can all take a big selfie together in Philly as 3 bald fellas. 3 bald men. Look at that. Beanies all year round for me, without a doubt. Hop has been commenting on Twitter. I love that. Where are we going to? I think Hurts is being protected, which is why 20 checks pre-snap, every snap. Not even sure. I'm joking. This is the best bit. Oh, here we go. Some optimism. Oh, it ended. This is the comment I live for. I think you're onto something with the hairstyle and facial hair combo. Thank you very much. That is excellent. I will take that over being told I look like the guy from The Whale, which I've had on here before. Okay, or Sid the Sloth. I will take that as an extremely lovely comment. And you are now my favourite person for tonight. Hair's a bit wet today. It was like really rainy outside and it got all messed up. But look, it looks like I've hit puberty now. I haven't been ID'd in a long time, or carded as the Americans call it. I feel tremendous. So maybe I am. Yeah, look at that. Look, I can even tickle it. I'm buzzing. I'm ready to go coach that Eagles team is what I'm going to do. And you know, I think that's also an interesting thing as well. Of like, you know, everyone says you want Sirianni out, yada, yada, yada. But what would you do if you were in charge? And for me, it's the same thing that I said before. And it's looking at the players that either don't want to be there or are very soft in terms of leadership and a bit too lenient. Someone like Darius Slay, who just says one thing, does another. Cutting that out, making a statement, playing younger guys that are hungry for their position. Someone like Thomas Booker, get him in there. If Jordan Davis still isn't doing anything, get Thomas Booker in there, okay? If you've got Bryce Huff doing nothing, get him out, put Jalix Hunt in there. If you've got an offensive lineman not pulling his weight, move him around. Do something. Do something, all right? If Jahan Dotson is going to run another 18 routes and receive no receptions because he's jogging up the sideline, get him out, put Smith in. If he's not doing it, get him out, put Campbell in. Just make changes and get the hungriest players on the field. And when you get a win, that's when you can start moving it around. Like, I can't do much more than that, unfortunately, as a Brit across the pond, but that's what I would do. Skywalker's birth certificate with a picture of Tyrion Lannister. So you've got all kinds of fandoms here. Come on, man. Why is John Harbaugh there? Why is Dan Campbell there? Do the 49ers not know what their expectations are? How about wait until at least mid-season to make these sweeping proclamations? Very well worded. I'll say this. I spent all of last year doing the same thing. The entirety of last year. When they were winning, when they were red hot, when they had 10 wins, I was like, the writing is on the wall. It's not sustainable. They're going to get rocked. And then I don't know. And it was just like, you're waiting for the end to come. They're constantly scraping and surviving. I don't think it's a sweeping proclamation. What reason for optimism is there other than what could be called delusion right now? And that is, I'm not trying to insult, but I'm saying what genuine reason for optimism for this team is there other than the fact that you believe without substantiated evidence that Jalen Hurts can get it right, that the offensive play calling is going to magically fix, that they can start scoring in the first quarter, that the secondary is going to hold its own, which that one I kind of believe because I like what Cooper DeJean brung in his debut. But you've got a defense that has been inconsistent. You've got offensive linemen now that are down. Jordan Mailata's out, and they face the league-leading Giants in terms of sack percentage. What genuine optimism is there for this team when the head coach can't even work out what he wants to do? And again, I don't even mean football. And in case you missed the start of the show, I'll quickly run through it back to catch everyone up. We all saw, again, a week ago, Jalen Carter yapping at fans. Nick Sirianni pulls him back. He's like, whoa, big boy, simmer down. Okay? 1 week later, Sirianni bursts over past all of his own players to start gesturing at fans, to start riling them up. Then he goes into a press conference, brings his kids, and says, hey, do you know what? Family atmosphere. I want my kids here to share the win. Then swears in front of them and gets cagey with the reporter. Then the next day, takes his behavior and says, actually, I'm sorry, that was out of line. He doesn't even know what he wants to do. Prior success, exponentially more success in the past than failure from this head coach. Okay, I'll combat that with this. What is their record over the last 15 games? And I'm not trying to be negative. I know I'm British. I know I'm sarcastic. I know that's in my personality. But over the last season and a half, what optimism, what prior success is there? They reached a Super Bowl 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Different coaches, different coordinators. Sirianni was the only one that stayed. Okay? Fair enough. More success than failure. The success is making the playoffs 3 years in a row in a situation where 14 of the 32 teams make the playoffs every year. That's average. That's not success. Success would be coming back from that Super Bowl loss, getting back to the championship game. Success would be coming back of last season when they went, 10-2 to start and fumbled it and going, right, we're going to start right. They start off 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. No looking back. And you can go back through these. Okay, you say there's been prior success and exponentially more, keyword, than there has been in the last, however long Sirianni's been head coach. Week 1 against the Packers, they should have been 17-0 down within about 5 minutes. They got lucky. They got incredibly lucky not to be down in that game. Week 2, field goals went missed, dodgy game calls from Sirianni hurt the team. Week 3, same again, but it actually cost them. Week 4, Week 5, bye. Week 6, they scrape past one of the worst teams in the league. Where is the success this season to build on? And that's what sucks. Like, I want to believe in this team. I think that I've said it all off season. On paper, I think the best roster, top to bottom, in the NFL. The best offense by a country mile on paper. Saquon Barkley, behind that offensive line, is the best running back in the NFL. He has single-handedly got this. Like, without Saquon Barkley, this team is doomed. Like, from the first 5 games, they will be lucky to have 1 win without Saquon Barkley. Right? Defense, I think, has all the makings to be a real unit to mess with in years to come. I think it can be a top 10, top 5 defense without a shadow of a doubt. When Quinion develops, when Cooper develops, if Nakobe Dean continue to develop, if Carter can continue to develop, you've got too many pieces around that unit for it not to be good. But just because you've got all the pieces, right? I don't know if you guys play sports management sims or not, but if you play something like Football Manager, you've got potential and you've got ability, right? And you can have a 1-star potential player, a 1-star ability player with 5-star potential. Unless you can get that out of him, he's still a 1-star player. Someone like Cooper DeJean could be a 5-star potential player. Is he going to develop into that with this coaching staff? Someone like Ionia Smith could be a player. Someone like Dylan McMahon could be a long-term player for this team. Are they going to develop? And ask yourself, to a point as well, if we're talking development-wise, Sirianni's been here for what, 4 years now? What players have developed significantly under his tenure? Devontae Smith came out of the gates, was one of the best receivers in football. I don't think he's got necessarily better. He's maintained the level that he's at, which is unbelievable. Like, he's just a different cat. AJ Brown doesn't count, came in, established, top player, continues to be a top player. The offensive line, pretty much all the same thing, right? What players have been... Oh, Dylan McMahon's gone. I meant Trevor Keegan. Probably that's the one. My apologies. It's late. But that's, where we're at. Like, who has? Kenny Gainwell hasn't. Jalen Hurts has gone up and down and somewhere in the middle this season, depending how nice you want to be. It's really weird. It's just a very weird thing. And you just have to work out, when is prevention better than cure? At what point? And if you're bullish on this team and you think they can sort it out, that's fine. If you believe on that previous success, that's fine. Landon Dickerson, fair. Jordan Mailata was getting better way before Nick Sirianni. Like, Jordan Mailata was already flying, Dickerson is very fair, though. I will give you Landon Dickerson. But prior experience only goes so far. At some point, it's what have you done for me lately? And the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. Because if you look at someone like Sean Payton with the Saints, he won a Super Bowl in 2011. It doesn't matter. He's shit 10 years later. It's the same thing. It's just difficult because, like, I think all of us want to believe in this team and that they can sort it out. But every week that passes is an opportunity to do so, and it's just not happening. The Giants beat the Browns by more points than the Eagles did. The Eagles haven't scored a first point in the first quarter, or they haven't scored a point in the first quarter, I should say, of any game this season. It's the first time in history that's happened to the team. First quarter. 12 minutes of play. They haven't scored a single point. What? On an offense with those players? And then there are the errors late on and the play calling and the decisions. Like, it's just, I genuinely think if you had any other coach in there right now, Skywalker's birth certificate could coach this team, and they would win a game. And by coach, I mean do Sirianni's job, which is not coach at all, really. Like, it's hard. And I just don't know where the line is. But for me, if it doesn't happen against the Giants, if the Eagles lose to the Giants and they come out of MetLife Stadium with their tails between their legs, preaching accountability, preaching they're going to get it right, preaching the offense is going to get better, gone. Like, there has to be some real introspection, not just from, the coach and the players, but ownership of, like, what are we doing here? Someone like Howie Roseman bust his ass off that offseason to not only bring Saquon Barkley, to not only land someone like Bryce Huff, who has the upside. I said early on, he's not going to get there straight away. It's going to be a longer term thing because he's not ready for that 3-down role. But longer term, that's a big player to have, I think. Right? You get him, you get Saquon. You negate the loss of Hassan Reddick. You have a stellar draft class where you get Quinion Mitchell, you get 2 linemen, you get Cooper DeJean, you get a receiver you can work with, you get Will Shipley you can hopefully develop into a rotational back. And Howie Roseman does all of this, does the orchestra, gets them all firing on their feet, the violins are purring, the trumpets are blaring, the fans are cheering, and then all of a sudden, someone at the back drops a cymbal and he picks it up and he drops it again and he starts crashing it on his head. And the whole band is just stood watching him like, what are we doing? That's where we're at. And again, I don't know where you draw the line. And it's really difficult. So we'll see, I suppose, in time. But I would like to think they figure it out. You've got a good opportunity to. You've got the Giants, as I said. Not going to be an easy game. It just isn't. I think that Giants pass rush is looking it's too good, really, at the minute for what the Eagles have to stop it. If they had Mailata, it'd be different. You've still got someone that is very early in his days of playing center. You've got a left tackle now that is a backup and hasn't been very good against the pass in the time he's played. You're missing Dallas Goedert. And in a 3-4, which is what New York plays, where those linebackers do a lot of the heavy lifting, like Azeez Ojulari, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He is a menace this season. He has been incredibly efficient. And now he's going to be the one where the tight end would get that chip block. He's not. It's going to be on Grant Calcaterra, who is a receiving tight end, not a blocking one. So you're down a tight end against a 3-4. You're down a left tackle against a pass rush that ranks first in sack rate in the entire league. And you've got an offense that can't do anything other than just sling it deep or throw little flick routes at the minute. I can see them losing it. I don't think they will. I do think they come out with a win. But this is a much tougher challenge in Cleveland. Divisional games are tight anyway. The Giants always have a tendency of just sticking around. And you could be the best quarterback on the planet, face Daniel Jones. If the team's not quite there, you're going to struggle. But Birdbrain makes the most valid analysis of the entire night of Saquon go brrr. And I agree. I think that homecoming game is going to be fun. I don't think... It's weird. I mean, what would you do if you're a Giants fan? Do you cheer Saquon? Do you boo him on his return? Are you indifferent? That's got to be a tough pill to swallow. And there's going to be a lot of emotion in that for Saquon as well. Because he didn't want to leave, per se. Like, the Giants just went, yeah, going now, bye. Like... But if you're a Giants fan and you've invested in this guy and you bought his jersey and you've watched him from when he was a rookie and continuously just be let down by the ownership, like, surely there has to be an acknowledgement that, it's not him and it's the ownership. If you're going to boo anyone, boo the owners. But if it was me and I was a Giants fan, I think I might just cry instead. It'll be easier. It's less painful to just let it all out through tears rather than having to stomach the fact that Saquon could just burst up the field for a 50-yard touchdown against you. But that's something we'll get to look forward to on Sunday. I'm kind of gutted it's not a primetime game, to be honest, because I know the teams aren't great, and I know there's probably much better matchups to show, but I think you could have a lot of fun with that for sure. But a quick announcement as well in terms of PSN. We had a cool moment today where GM Liam was on the scene with Brian, and we went out and got someone that we wanted on our roster. We wanted this star wideout on our roster for a long, long time. So Anthony DeBonner, previously or still affiliated with Pro Football Network, has covered the Eagles for like a decade. I'm sure a lot of you guys will follow him on Twitter. Amazing reporter, incredibly intelligent, puts out some fantastic work, and it's been a real like growing figure in Eagles coverage since the time I started. Like, I'm pretty sure we started around the same sort of time. Like, weirdly enough, I can remember all his old Twitter pictures, and we used to like talk years. I think I had him on a podcast and stuff. Like, he's a great guy. And the stars finally aligned, and we brought him to PSN. So our Eagles team now is stacked for coverage. So you've got like myself, you've got Brian, you've got Chris Babos, you've got Corey, Mike Greger, and of course now Anthony DeBonnet as well. I think I'm missing one. Who am I missing? Oh, David Neese. That's it. Yeah, David as well, who has been brilliant this year. Like, an amazing asset to the team. So the PSN Eagles team is thriving right now. Again, there'll be daily written content on phillysportsnetwork.com for those of you that do want to, what's the word, intake your Eagles content through words, I suppose, rather than me shouting at you on a YouTube stream. Thank you for the congrats, Bear Brain. Yeah, he's a lot of fun. I'm very excited to see what he can do with PSN. He's a hell of a writer, and we're very lucky to have him. So that was cool. But outside of that, I don't think I've got much. I don't want to rant about Sirianni for another 15 minutes, really. So if there's any questions that you guys have about the team or the matchup ahead or Cleveland or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we can have a quick little discussion to round it off, because I can't be negative all night. That's just not nice listening to for anyone, is it? But yeah, I do hope the team sorts it out. I hope that Sirianni gets it right. Maybe he comes in on like Sunday with bright blue, like wigged hair. Like, maybe he puts on a wig and like shaves himself a mohawk out of it or something. Something's got to give. Try something new. But yeah, it's been an interesting few days, and one that I think could have a significant impact on Sirianni's long-term future. I hope it. It's weird. I hope it doesn't. Obviously, part of me thinks there has to be a line, and he needs to be very aware of, like, set the tone and abide by it. You can't just say one thing, do another. The players aren't going to respond to that. You need consistent leadership, and that starts at the top. It's not, it might be a Jalen Hurts saying, I can't remember, but it's not, on the field. Like, the real leaders are off the field and what they don't see. It's all very well looking good on the field when you're griddying around and you're celebrating and scoring touchdowns. But when the doors are closed and the media have gone home and it's just you and the boys in there, that's when you've got to step up as a leader and rally that team and lead that team in the way it should be done. And I just don't think that's happening by anyone across the board at the minute. I think it was a quiet day for Dotson last Sunday, but I saw some things that make me think he's slowly getting Jalen's trust. So I just saw the comment underneath. I had to show it. I won't be reading that out in case I end up getting a lawsuit from the birds. But we can't be too mean, all right? Like, I'm sure he's fine. He's a lovely man. Just not suited to coaching this team right now. I think he was a year ago. But yeah, I wonder if just the changing of constant wide receivers every week has played a role in that. Obviously, week 1, AJ was there. Week 2, he's not. Week 3, he's not. Week 4, Smitty's gone. Week 5, Smitty's back. Week 7, they're both back. Like, Dotson has just been one of the only constants, I guess, in terms of even just practice day to day. Like, just someone that can be leaned on and thrown to and build that rapport. So hopefully that's working out and he can actually start, doing something, because we haven't seen him do much of anything in an Eagles jersey yet, which is, I think, disappointing. Like, if we were to rank the top disappointments of this season so far, I hate to say it, Dotson's going to be near the top. Like, Bryce Huff, for me, wasn't a disappointment, because I said months ago this was going to happen and everyone's going to freak out because he's not ready for it. Dotson, we saw what he did in Washington with multiple, 400-500 yard seasons, big deep threat guy, finally gives the Eagles that Quez Watkins-esque receiver who can actually catch a football. And then you come away from it and you're like, well, that's gone well. Now he's not doing anything and the team really need him to do something. So hopefully he can catch on. Obviously he was a late arrival and it's the same sort of thing as when you acquire people near the trade deadline. Like, we all remember how the Golden Tate trade panned out, where he gets into the things so late, where learning the playbook, getting up to speed, learning the terminology, like, that's the big thing for receivers, is that everything changes in terms of what you're told to do and the routes to run, and it's a bit overwhelming. So that takes time. And by the time he did get good and he did clock on, it was just a little bit too late for that Eagles team to do much of anything with it. Dotson, obviously much earlier, but he arrived right near the end of preseason, so there isn't a ton of time for him to get ready for game one and to immediately start being a factor. But hopefully that is beginning to change, and we will start seeing more of him over the coming weeks. But I think we're going to end it a bit early there, if that's okay, just because, again, I don't want to shout about Nick Sirianni. I think this would have been better as a video. I'm going to clip it up and put it in some TikToks and stuff. But yeah, I don't want to just shout at you for an hour about Nick Sirianni because there's only so much I can do with it. But I will be here Friday night, obviously, to preview the game against the Giants. I'll be here Sunday night around 4 p.m. Eastern to recap the game against the Giants. Whatever that entails, we'll be here locked in, ready to go and to talk about it all. It's going to be interesting for sure, but I hope the Eagles can pull out a win and change our trajectories. And I hope that Skywalker and his birth certificate are indeed correct, and that the prior success, there has been exponentially more of it than in the past in terms of failure when comparing. Like, I hope that's the case. I want him to be right, and I want him to come in to Sunday's stream with the Eagles having beat the Giants and go, I told you, we're fine. I really like it. Before we go, could we see Johnny Wilson as a pseudo tight end more? I would love it. I mean, I was begging for that, in the offseason, but I think he's just a bit too nimble. I think he's a bit too, his route running's too quick and too zippy. So I don't know, if he played that Calcaterra role and you could trust Calcaterra in the blocking game and in run blocking specifically, then definitely. I think that is absolutely a possibility. I think with his size, with his frame, he could play a tight end role. It's just the physicality of it. When you're trying to take on defensive ends and linebackers, I don't know if he's quite got that there yet. But as a receiving tight end, while Calcaterra takes on that bit maybe, especially without Dallas Goedert, maybe they are going to. Like, I saw that Albert O was randomly listed on the injury report today, despite I'm 90% sure being on the practice squad and totally irrelevant for the last 12 months. So that could be a sign they're looking at tight end options, or at least putting him on there. So I would love to see it. Again, with Goddard down, maybe for a few weeks, give Calcaterra the reins and then put Wilson in that Calcaterra role. Because Calcaterra was able to break off a few big catches. He was able to make a few head-turning plays. There's no reason we can't see Johnny Wilson do that, having watched his college tape, on stream with you guys and getting all excited about his route running. So I would be all for it. But yes, on that note, gents, it has been an absolute pleasure as always. I appreciate you all checking in on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. I'll see you again on Friday. If you could, leave a like on your way out and just put your popcorn in the trash. That would be tremendous. And I'll see you on Friday for the Eagles versus Giants preview. Take care. Enjoy your evening and tomorrow night's game. I've forgotten who it's between. It is tomorrow night's Thursday night football game. It's the Saints and someone. Broncos? Saints Broncos? Saints Broncos. I think it's Saints Broncos. Got away with that. Long day. I'll see you Friday, guys. Enjoy your next couple days. Take care. I'll see you soon.